Have you guys ever wondered what a 600cc, 9,000 RPM bike engine from the 90s sounds like with a full header back straight pipe? Well, today you're gonna find out because we're going from this to this, from this to this, to unleash the full potential of this little engine. Now, of course, we're doing this for a few reasons. For one, this engine is one of the best sounding naturally aspirated engines I've ever heard. But secondly, in order to get a little bit more horsepower out of this thing with a power adder, we're gonna have to have a less restrictive exhaust. That's why we're ditching the factory header, we're ditching the catalytic converter, and we're just making a whole new system fresh from stainless steel. And that also gives you a little bit of a hint as to what power adder we're gonna use on this thing. If we were gonna turbocharge it, we wouldn't be making an exhaust. That leaves supercharger or nitrous. Now, first things first. Before we can do anything, we have to remove the factory exhaust. And I'd be lying if I told you I was looking forward to this. Everything's easy to reach, but this is not gonna be easy to remove. The cat's out. Now for the manifold. Okay, that wasn't too bad. I definitely had to break out the angle grinder, as you guys saw, but that was on the heat shield, which covered the exhaust. The actual exhaust itself isn't too terrible, so I guess the heat shield did kind of its job. But now, let me show you what we have to replace this. We got some tubing for the runners. We've got some tubing for the actual exhaust, a 1/2-inch thick plate of stainless steel, and some V-bands. And we will be using a muffler, but that is a special surprise for later in the video. And all of this material has been provided by Mishimoto, so huge thank you to them. They make stainless steel, aluminum, V-bands, pretty much everything you could ever need to fabricate your own intercooler or exhaust system. For now, cut this out on this, grind it flat, and then you can continue. Before we can program that and try to cut it, we gotta do some maintenance on the plasma cutter. Well, the plasma table's looking good again. All the consumables are replaced. I even changed out the air dryer, so we should be good to go. Obviously, we want the plasma cutter performing at its best to cut this 1/2-inch thick plate of stainless steel. But now it's time to find out if it can do it. Take a picture of the flange and head to the computer. So here is our test piece. First things first. That looks pretty spot on. If not, maybe the bores are a bit too small. Bolt holes line up, bores line up, bores aren't quite big enough. So I'm gonna make them bigger, cut out another test piece, go from there. Better, much better. So now it is time for the big hunk 1/2-inch stainless steel. I'm gonna do a couple things. For one, I'm gonna do it in 3 separate cuts so it hopefully doesn't overheat. I'm also going to tack this to the table so it doesn't warp or overheat, and I'm going to preheat it so hopefully it doesn't warp and overheat. I think it cut better than I thought. We're just gonna give it a shot. Why fucking Christ. No! Bro, what? Ooh, that was almost bad. Let's just pretend the plasma cutter didn't mess up the origin point and ruin my expensive, hard to get piece of stainless steel, and that it instead cut out perfectly and gave me this. Whoa, wow. That's weird, it's kind of thinner. It doesn't seem like it's 1/2 inch. It's magnetic. Stainless steel's not magnetic. Oh well, now that we have the flange, we can continue with the header build. The next order of business is to make the collector. Obviously a tube is gonna come off of each cylinder and it has to combine into one tube for the rest of the exhaust. That's the collector. I played it a little bit smarter this time, and instead of practicing with my material that I didn't want to ruin, I made this out of mild steel. So this is like my little dummy collector. 3 1.5 inch tubes into 1 2-inch tube. I half-assed this and the fitment's pretty good. So now I'm going to recreate that with my stainless steel. This thing's pretty sick. Pretty happy with that. Well, that's a nice unit. So now I'm gonna cut down the end, tack on a V-band, and that will allow us to continue. Not perfect, but it's much more round now, and it fits nicely into the V-band. Okay, one last thing. Some nice AutoZone exhaust and MIG weld. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, Caleb, what the heck are you doing? The collector is now mounted nice and solidly in the place that we want to build the manifold in. So now we can start building our runners, you know? Start assembling them. That cylinder is gonna go here, this cylinder is gonna go to the middle, and that cylinder is going to go to the far left, or yeah, you get it. The way this is gonna work is we're going to build each runner, tack the runner together to itself, you know, making sure it still fits and everything. And then we will fully weld each runner and then weld the runners to the collector and everything to the flange. And so, let's begin. Ha ha ha, 1 down, 2 to go. You know, the other thing I have to keep in mind is being able to reach bolts and stuff still. Do a immediate 180 and then, oh, I think this one's gonna be pretty easy. Not holding it perfectly in place, but hey, that's 2 out of 2. We are starting to have a sick looking exhaust manifold. Last but not least, cylinder 3. We got a manifold, a header or something. Now I know cylinder 1, you know, a bit longer and loopier than the other 2 cylinders. If I was going for 1,000 horsepower, I might remake that one, make it try to make it the same length, but I'm not. And I think this actually might sound cool. And I kind of think it looks cool. So now we're gonna pull the runners off and weld them up. And this is when things start to get exciting. And that's because we have this, which is a back purging setup. Now back purging is something I've never done before on this channel. It's the process of filling the tube that you're welding with argon so that the back of the weld is just as clean as the front of the weld. Now the reason why we're doing this is because since it is a header, since it's really close to the engine, the exhaust gases are gonna be hotter. Plus, there's 3 different pipes coming into one, they're gonna expand at different rates, and it's going to stress the header quite a bit. If we didn't back purge it, there would be a higher risk of one of the welds cracking. Back purging pretty much makes the weld much stronger because both the front and the back are clean. Now the reason why I've never done this before is because normally I'm just making exhausts. And although it's beneficial on a normal exhaust, it's not necessary. I've never had a weld crack on an exhaust, but with a header, we're gonna do this right. So let me show you. So I take our hose from the gas tank, slip on the hose clamp. So then you take your pipe, you put the feed into one end, the cap in the other, and then you pretty much, you know, start at like 20 CFM to purge all of the oxygen out of there. And so that's blowing argon into this and making sure that there's no oxygen in there. So the weld is all good. Pretty simple. Let's give it a shot. Never really gonna know until the end, but just gonna keep welding. I also finally got the proper gas lens too, so should just be dialed in. I don't like the hose, it's kind of stiff. So I'm gonna take this back cap off, take this front cap off. Oh yeah. Yeah, this would be a pretty cool turbo manifold too, though, if it was like that, you know. I am so happy with this. I mean, this is my first time ever doing this. This is pretty freaking sick. And ladies and gents, we have our finished header manifold, whatever. I mean, it looks more like a turbo manifold, but I guess you call it a header. I'm really proud of this. It being my first one I ever built, first time merge collector, first time back purging, first time welding to a flange too. I managed to prevent it from warping pretty good. I mean, it's a little warped, but I think it'll be fine. Is it perfect? No, definitely not. But for my first one, I'm happy with it. And I think it's going to sound sick. So let's throw it on and start an open header. But before we do that, there's one unfortunate thing. We have to paint the flange because the flange is mild steel. It's gonna rust if we don't paint it, so I have to paint it. Oh, I meant the flange is stainless steel. 1/2 inch thick, yep, not mild steel, I didn't reuse the stock one. I'm quite excited to see how loud this is gonna be. Straight pipe, 3-cylinder. Kind of sounds like a tractor. So now that that's done, we're gonna begin working on the rest of the exhaust. We have our 2-inch piping, but now it's time to show you the surprise I was mentioning earlier in the video. This is essentially a car that's powered by a motorcycle engine. So why not use a motorcycle muffler? This is a muffler off of an R6 motorcycle exhaust. The main reason for using it is because it looks cool. You know, it's riveted aluminum, it's got this plaque, the tip is kind of cool, but I'm hoping it's also gonna sound sick. I'm hoping it's not gonna be too quiet. Either way, I thought it was fitting. Motorcycle muffler on a motorcycle engine that's in a car. Now, before we can put the muffler on, we have to get the exhaust there. So, let's start cutting. So the only slightly tricky thing is that if we want this to be facing the right way, it's gotta be like that, right? And the inlet is on this side. The exhaust is coming from this side. The idea is to have this kind of like that and centered, right? And the exhaust back here to go up, around, and down into it. So it's gonna look sick. Hello! Oh shit. That's really quiet. Uh-oh. So the exhaust is all tacked together and it's up there. I absolutely love the way it looks with the little motorcycle muffler there. It's silly, but that's kind of what this car is, silly. But now everything's tacked together in the right place. I'm going to make some hangers, tack the hangers on, and pull it off, fully weld it up. Seems like a pretty similar volume as it used to be, but I have an idea of how we can make it louder if we want. But I want to drive it first, see how it sounds like this. Just a little bit. It's just a little bit louder. You know, this is actually my first time ever making an exhaust for a naturally aspirated vehicle. Oh, the pops in between shifts. The pops in between shifts, yes. Oh, do you hear the revving? I checked everything over and it all seems good. No leaks, no cracks. Freaking huge success. Quieter at idle. It is definitely louder and dronier just putting around, but it's not too bad. And then when you rip on it, it sounds like a race car. It sounds like a bike. It's awesome. This is the best sounding little 3-cylinder I've ever experienced. I haven't experienced any besides this one, so that's not saying much, but it sounds awesome. So there it is. I could not be happier with the way the exhaust turned out, both in how it looks and how it sounds. I'm also happy because I learned a bunch. Like the first time ever building an exhaust manifold went pretty well. The motorcycle muffler worked pretty well. Back purging worked pretty well. Plasma cutter, I figured out what's going on with that, and so now if I want to do it next time, it'll work pretty well. But now that all that is done, we are ready to add some horsepower to this thing. And in the next video, that's exactly what we're gonna do. Of course, if you wanna watch that video early, you can head over to Patreon, become a patron. In fact, you can figure out what power adder we're putting on this thing right now by doing that for free. You won't get the videos ahead of schedule for free, but you'll know what's going on this thing for free. So check it out. Thank you to anyone who does that. Thank you to everyone who's watched this video. The little K car that could. See you guys in the next one.